A great many people don't understand that war is a very beneficial industry to the Rothschild line, who make huge totals of money off the two sides. Each war in late history hosts made them suspect that advantages, regardless of which side wins. The gathering accounts the war from far away and gathers enthusiasm on the blood from a great many innocents. TheEpochTimes.com reports, since the get-go, the main part from which the political pioneers of a nation could obtain enough cash to spend on the most inefficient undertaking in mankind's history was the saving money segment. At that point and now, financing war just through tax assessment was incomprehensible due to its overwhelming impacts on the economy and the subsequent prominent kickback. Prior to the coming of present-day saving money and credit, rulers expected to acquire gold coin from goldsmiths and the honorability to prepare their armed forces. What's more, albeit medieval wars were frequently long and fierce, they were restricted in scope as a result of the imperatives on financing and the constrained innovation and the littler size of the population. This changed with the making of the exclusive Bank of England in 1694, which enabled the British government to back its war endeavours through bond deals. The National Bank was in presence only 7 years previously. The new century commenced with the War of the Spanish Succession in 1701. The banks owning the Bank of England, and several monetary organizations after it, found that there was a point of confinement to loaning to profitable undertaking, which streamlines on human and physical capital. Since war obliterates both, its request on loaning, and along these lines its capability to benefit the banks, is boundless. The House of Rothschild. It was around 100 years after the fact, be that as it may, that war back through private banks was conveyed to flawlessness by the Rothschild family. The Saving Money Administration's patriarch, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, established the main bank in Frankfurt, Germany, in the 1760s, with his children later growing the activities to Paris, London, Vienna, and Naples. Through their managing an account arrange, the family made their first fortune amid the Napoleonic Wars by guessing with cash from German Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. The Rothschilds should put it in British government bonds, however rather utilized it for exchanging war materials. They later restored the cash with the premium that would have been earned by placing it in British government bonds, taking the surplus benefits and hence disregarding their trustee obligation. Be that as it may, the family additionally helped, and benefited, by sneaking gold through France to Spain to subsidize the Duke of Wellington's undertakings against Napoleon, and gave advances to the British government specifically. A few students of history at that point assert the Rothschilds were engaged with the primary huge scene of banks financing the two sides in a war, while, as per Robert McNair Wilson, the creator of Guarantee to Pay, the banks in London gave Napoleon £5 million to give it a moment go at Waterloo. Despite the fact that the chances of Napoleon winning were low, truly the crushed country would need to follow through on the obligations it owed to global agents, as happened again with Germany after World War I and World War II. The lenders dependably win. Regardless of whether the Rothschilds slammed the British government security advertise, after they got news ahead of time of Wellington's triumph at Waterloo in 1815, keeping in mind the end goal to then purchase up the paper at little to no cost, or whether they just got it up due to the triumph, is again debated. Most students of history concur, in any case, that the Rothschild family, in light of its war dealings, turned into the wealthiest line in the 19th century, and numerous evaluations still rank it in the best level of the wealthiest families today. What's more, albeit different names are more prominent in global fund in the 21st century, is it just an occurrence that the Rothschild claimed the Economist daily paper dependably supports war over tranquil arrangements, regardless of whether it be in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, or Syria. American involvement. After British and other European banks were predominant in financing most wars in the 19th century, including the American Civil War, American banks furnished a proportional payback in the 20th century. John Moody writes in The Masters of Capital, about World War I, not exclusively did England and France pay for their provisions with cash outfitted by Wall Street, however they made their buys through a similar medium, inevitably, the place of J.P. Morgan, was chosen for this vital errand. Along these lines, the war had given Wall Street an altogether new part. Up to this point it has been solely the central station of fund, now it turned into the best modern shop the world had ever known. Notwithstanding offering stocks and bonds, financing railways, and playing out alternate undertakings of an incredible saving money focus, Wall Street started to bargain in shells, gun, submarines, covers, attire, shoes, canned meats, wheat, and a huge number of different articles required for the arraignment of an awesome war. A few antiquarians, similar to Robert Farrell in his book Woodrow Wilson and World War I, even blame President Woodrow Wilson for entering World War I to shield American banks from advance misfortunes, for fear that their clients France and England lose the war. On the off chance that Farrell is right, and this is a quarrelsome issue, Americans, who voted in favor of Wilson in 1916 on a no-war stage, got dragged into a war they didn't need. However, their pioneers considered fundamental in light of evil budgetary dealings kept out of people in general lie. It was, obviously, the general population of the United States, and not their leaders, who paid for this and different wars with their blood as well as higher expenses and swelling, to pay for the additional administration obligation after the war was finished. World War I was the deadliest clash ever of, devouring the most lives in the briefest time frame. This was expected to propel in war innovation, as well as the legislature's suspension of the highest quality level. Governments, in this way, could acquire relatively boundless adds up to devour the capital and individuals of their countries. Also, in spite of the fact that the pioneer of warring Germany, William II, needed to surrender, Germany's lenders, and the global agents who had upheld Germany, were unscathed, as Germany's kin needed to follow through on the war obligation through devastating reparations and hyperinflation. Media propaganda. In the United States, fundamentally the same as The Economist and other predominant press war purposeful publicity of today, daily papers were instrumental for the lawmakers and the lenders to influence well-known feeling toward World War I. In any event, concurring the comments of one spectator in the Congressional Record, in March 1915, the J.P. Morgan interests, the steel, shipbuilding and powder interests, and their auxiliary associations, got together 12 men high up in the daily paper world and utilized them to choose the most powerful daily papers in the United States, and an adequate number of them to control for the most part the arrangement of the day-by-day press, said Representative Oscar Callaway of Texas. They discovered it was just important to buy the control of 25 of the best papers, and understanding was achieved, the approach of the papers was purchased. Universal banks drove by Wall Street were additionally instrumental in financing the ascent of Adolf Hitler's National Communist administration in 1930s Germany and even kept on working with it amid wartime, as reported in the books The Tower of Basel by Adam Lieber and Money Street and The Rise of Hitler by Anthony Sutton. Sutton states, the zenith of the framework was the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, in Basel, Switzerland. The BIS pinnacle proceeded with its work amid World War II as the medium through which the brokers, who evidently were not at war with each other, proceeded with the commonly useful trade of thoughts, data, and getting ready for the post-war world. As indicated by Sutton, comparable financing, and in addition illicit innovation exchanges, likewise happened amid the Cold War with the Soviet Union. War finance today. What has changed today? Tragically, not much. The general population still don't need war, be that as it may. The worldwide managing and account cartel still observes it to be a standout amongst the most gainful undertakings to back, and in this manner every now and again pushes for it in the predominant press and contributes liberally to government officials who bolster a war. In the last presidential decision, Hillary Clinton kept running on a stage of heightening the contentions with Russia and Syria and Ukraine, and she got millions in gifts and talking expenses from huge banks. In the United States, banks either specifically or in a roundabout way fund the U.S. government through the Treasury Showcase or the exclusive Federal Reserve. Through the essential merchant organize, huge banks like J.P. Morgan and Bank of America print cash, at no cost, to credit the government's record with them and get Treasury securities consequently at a higher rate of premium. They at that point either keep them, pitch them to people in general, or pitch them to the Fed, which itself prints cash at no cost and, today, possesses nearly $2.5 trillion of central government obligation. Banks still advantage extraordinarily from the issuance of government obligation and still advantage significantly from wars like George W. Bush's, another Wall Street deer, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which, as indicated by the Congressional Budget Office, cost $2.4 trillion altogether, just somewhat less than the measure of Treasury bonds on the books of Fed. So if banks are so capable and war is so productive, for what reason don't we have a different universe war? The principal reason is a decent one: the web gives voters the choice to make up their own particular personalities, as opposed to trusting prevailing press war publicity, and this entrance to data has brought about prevalent backfires at whatever point another war is not too far off. The second one is more negative. After the 1970s and the approach of globalization, governments in the West have figured out how to include significantly more obligation with more political practicality, which costs less lives however most likely squanders as much capital over the long run. This machine is known as the war on neediness, and banks are happily subsidizing it, as well.